larger projects I worked on over this past month are illustration projects. This is the final of how the first one turned out. I worked on creating 12 illustrated 2-color icons based on a theme. I decided to go with 1950s and choose objects reminiscent of that time. This is the final, but I want to kind of show you some glimpses of how it began. So how I started this project first is by choosing a topic, 1950s, 1960s, and then I just wrote a list of everything I could think of from that time. And once I was done, I starred some of my favorite ones that I was most interested in illustrating, and also started to put things into themes. I thought about how might I name this. I ended up choosing this one, 1950s pop icons. I was also thinking about different color palettes that are reminiscent of the time period. I did rough sketches here in my sketchbook of 12 different icons, which are pretty close to the final. I'll show you how I took this and created the final illustrations. I took a photo of the sketchbook. There's a little bit of an opacity to this, but I took a picture of that so I was able to draw and use that for reference. I also created a grid to help me keep the icons around the same size. This is the first sketch, a little bit looser. And then after that, on another layer, I created the final drawing, so a little bit more fine-tuned. If you look at it underneath, you can see there's just slight variations, just refining it more as I went. And then I started playing around with different textures. So here with a light muted blue, just giving it a little bit of messy textured block in the back. Here I was trying it again with a different, more vibrant blue, and these are risograph brushes, so that's why they have this texture to them. I also played around with having the icons in color. I thought maybe I would have the line art be blue and then maybe a yellow background, but I ended up liking the black more and then the texture here. So these were the final icons. Then I duplicated that file to create this new one. And if we go through each of the layers, so I have the paper texture background. This is like a Canson paper I purchased from a creator. I redrew a grid on there, pretty much the same. And then here are the final icon drawings in black, the light blue risograph texture brush behind that layer. And then I also added type. So for this first one, here's an outline. To do this, I typed out 1950s pop icons in Illustrator and then exported that so that I could trace the letters and really get it precise. So I started with the outline layer and then also with another risograph textured brush, filled in the type with a black, just so that it would match the texture of the icons. And then this is the final. I really like how it turned out, and I intend on doing more themed icons in the future. The next illustration project I want to show is more editorial based. So for this one, I'm targeting a travel magazine client, and what I created was a full page illustration and also some spot illustrations. So these are small little illustrations that if this was a magazine article, this would be the cover illustration, and then on the opposite side you would have these spot illustrations. So I'll show you how I started with this one. So I started with thumbnail sketches because I knew the overall theme, that this is an article about the Marina neighborhood guide, so things to do in the Marina neighborhood in San Francisco. So I'm exploring different layouts here. I was pretty sure from the beginning that I wanted the Golden Gate featured in some aspect because that's such a big part of the Marina neighborhood. Loose sketches and thinking about where hand lettering would go. I thought this one was cute, of a windowsill of a cat looking out at the Golden Gate. It didn't seem like it quite fit what I was going for the magazine article, but would be a good idea to explore later. I also created sketches of some of those spot illustrations. So I only ended up doing these 3, and I liked keeping it in theme, so choosing 3 different signs from the Marina district, but these were a few other ones. And then I took my favorite thumbnail sketch, which was actually the first one, and did a larger thumbnail sketch of it. So here I'm using script lettering for the word Marina, and then playing around with where I would put the rest of the type and how the Golden Gate and the Palace of the Fine Arts building fits into that. So similar to the icon project, I brought in a photo of my sketchbook page, and then I started with a blue pencil and did a slightly more refined but quick sketch on top. And then on another layer, created the more refined sketch. So here we are in black. So you can see, I like to show both of the layers on top of each other so you can see how things shift as you're refining it. So you can see how I moved the Golden Gate, where I moved the main word for Marina to make room for things. And I played around with a lot of different backgrounds. So for example, I thought about doing some kind of gradient background, but I didn't quite like that and ended up just going with this red background. And then started to add color and texture. So here with the Procreate 6B pencil, I added pink for texture in these elements. I also added a general texture to the background to make it less digital. So it's really subtle. You might not be able to tell on screen, but it does make a difference. And then for the lettering, I decided to use a different color. You can see the difference from black, where everything kind of blends in together and it's hard to see the words. And then changing it to this cream color, I think really makes a big difference. So that's the main illustration. And then for the spot illustrations, I did the same thing, bringing in my sketchbook page, using the blue pencil to refine those drawings. And then here's the final line art. Again, you can see how things start to shift as you're refining them. Adding the background. Wanted to keep everything cohesive, so there's the same pink 6B pencil texture in the background. There's the paper texture, and then also changing the lettering line art color. So you can see it makes a big difference in legibility going from black to this cream. You just can't really see it and it really makes it pop. And then it also keeps it cohesive with the main illustration. I have played around with different textures. Here's a parchment, here's a newsprint. You can see it just adds a little bit more character, makes it feel less digital, a little bit more vintage. Here's one last glimpse into the finals of each of those illustration projects. Now I'll share some sketchbook drawings from the past month. So this drawing is actually based on a reference. I really wanted to play around with tones of gray and creating texture with shape and hatching. I like the abstract nature of this spread, and it was very therapeutic to color and add in all of the patterns, especially here. This definitely took quite a while. This spread has a bunch of little drawings based on photos I took from a day I spent in San Francisco. Here I decided to add color to the background by using a marker to fill in a shape and then drew on top of it with a pen. This is the Green Apple bookstore in the Richmond district of San Francisco, one of my absolute favorite bookstores. These are some things I found in another bookstore. This was a small book called A Short History of Photography. I thought it was interesting how it had a random chair on the cover. And this was a super cute little notebook called A Tiny Diary for Tiny Thoughts. I almost purchased it, but on second thought, I realized I probably wouldn't actually use it, but I thought it was a cute idea. This is a classic San Francisco Victorian home in the Pacific Heights neighborhood. And these cubes were based on a mural I saw. It doesn't really look like the mural, a lot of different gradient colors, but I wanted to capture the memory of what I saw in my sketchbook. For this spread, I started with a Posca paint marker and just filled the background. A similar idea to what I did here, but using a different art supply. So on this one, I filled the entire page, and then over here, I decided to divide it up to create 3 different layouts. I was inspired by an illustrator's work I'd seen on how they create hand-lettered layouts like this, and that's what inspired me to add a page like that in my sketchbook. Here I was capturing some foods I ate at a Mexican restaurant one evening for dinner, and over here I wanted to capture 2 songs that I've been listening to on repeat over the last couple of weeks, which are these 2 songs by The Killers, When You Were Young and Can You Read My Mind, both from 2006, but I didn't really start listening to this album or these songs in particular till about 2007. So when I listen to these, they really take me back to my first year of art school. I like how this looks together, a really cohesive spread. Here, I decided to do some collage, one because I just wanted to experiment with it, but also because the Posca marker, specifically on the yellow, had bled through. It even bled through a little bit onto this side of the page. So I thought in order to fix that, I would just paste something over it. So a good idea to create a collage spread out of it. I like the neutral color palettes here and all the different textures. This is a piece from a screen printed poster. And I like how this contrasts with the much more colorful nature of these pieces, and also a really great reminder for me to always get inspired and make more. These are some Polaroids I took from a recent trip to Austin, Texas. This is a popular mural on South Congress that says, "I love you so much." It's on the side of Joe's coffee shop. Next is this SoCo mural, which has little bits of Austin architecture painted in each of the letters. This photo was taken, I think, a little bit after sunset, so that's why it's a little bit blurry because there wasn't quite enough light to capture it. This is another mural, Love from Austin, also taken after sunset, so you can see a little bit of blurriness, especially in the word love, but I kind of like how that makes the lines look here. This is a front window from a bookstore called The Painted Porch in Bastrop, which is a small town 30 minutes outside of Austin. And this window said, "Good things happen in bookstores." And I'm not really sure what happened here, if it's something to do with the developing or because it's older film, but there's a little bit of black here, so it didn't fully develop. You have to learn to love these little perks of shooting with film. This one, unfortunately, didn't turn out. I'm thinking it's from the Museum of Ice Cream because this one looks kind of similar. It's a little bit more developed, but not quite. Unfortunate, but probably due to not enough light and when you shoot with old film. This is the Austin skyline from the Lady Bird boardwalk. And this is another one also from the boardwalk, but a different perspective as you're walking on the boardwalk and getting closer. I really like how the reflections look in these. Creates a dreamy-like composition, especially with the color palette too. The next one, this is shot with blue 600 film. This is what the packaging looks like. It's the reclaimed edition. And this one was also past expiration, so it was produced in January 2023, and usually film is good for a year from the production date, so that would be January 2024, and I was using it well over a year past that, so I'm actually really surprised how well this turned out despite it being somewhat expired. This is the Paramount Theater signage. This is a coffee food truck. It was in a cute little area where there was a bunch of other food trucks, kind of a relaxing little area, and it was a pretty good coffee. And the last one is this Greetings from Austin mural. This one turned out pretty good too, considering there were 3 blue Polaroids and then a full pack of this circle edition. So you get 8 photos in each pack. And if you're curious, this is the camera I shot those photos with.